Welcome to Fight Day, coming to you live from UFC 128 at the Prudential Center in Newark, New Jersey. We've got exclusive interviews, videos, and more only here on Fight Day. And welcome to Fight Day, the only live UFC pre-fight show streaming to you around the world. My name's Dave Farra.
And I'm Megan Olivi.
Now we've got an amazing show in store for you today. One of the UFC's most exciting and lovable fighters, Guida, is going to be stopping by, as well as UFC bantamweight champion Dominick Cruz and UFC light heavyweight Vera is going to be here as well.
Remember, we're live here at the Prudential Center, and we would love to hear from you. If you'd like to comment during the show, you can tweet us at HeavyMMA or hit us up on our Facebook page at facebook.com/HeavyMMA.
And if your question or comment is read on the air, we're going to send you some awesome prizes, including signed forum gear from Uriah Faber and Joseph Benavidez, and American Fighter shirt signed by our buddy Rich Franklin, as well as a set of Round 5 collectibles. Now, we're here, Megan, in your home state of New Jersey. You excited?
I am so excited. It's been a year since the UFC's been here, and really, they haven't had a pay-per-view card on the East Coast since Boston in August. So, it's really exciting to be here. The fans are so stoked. There was a press conference on Wednesday in the middle of the afternoon on a work day. Over 1,000 people showed up. I mean, I think that shows the dedication of UFC fans here.
Yeah, and you see this parking lot behind us. There's been dudes out there tailgating since like 2 o'clock this afternoon.
Yeah.
It's good stuff. Now, the UFC has been headline news across every single news platform for the past week because 1 week ago today it was announced that the UFC has purchased Strikeforce. Massive news. We're going to be breaking that down today here on the show. And Fight Day has officially begun, so it's Fight Day right now. There's free Facebook fights coming up a little bit later. We got Spike TV prelims, and then of course the live pay-per-view. And right now, it's time for our first Boost Mobile fan poll. 2 WEC stars are making their UFC debut tonight, Eddie Wineland and the California Kid Uriah Faber. Who do you think is going to come out with their hand raised? You can text Faber to 22333 for Uriah Faber, or Wineland to 22333 for Eddie Wineland. And of course, we will read the results at the end of the show. Right now, joining us on the Fight Day set is UFC light heavyweight fighter who recently was released by the UFC and then welcomed right back after a few controversial moments following his fight at UFC 125. Here to give us his take is Brandon the Truth Vera. Brandon, thank you so much for being here with us today at Fight Day.
Thank you for having me. I apologize for walking in front of you.
No, it's all good, man. This is a big moment. We're here in Newark, New Jersey. Very rarely does the East Coast get a fight card like this. You're a San Diego boy, so you're coming all the way across the country too, but what's it like for you being here in Newark?
Coming back home, I'm from the East Coast originally, so I grew up in Virginia. I did my summers in Passaic, New Jersey. I used to be hanging out in Brooklyn, New York all the time, so it's like homecoming, man. It's really nice. I miss the hustle and bustle of the East Coast, especially New York City, so it's nice to be in New Jersey, New York. It's nice to be on the East Side.
And another homecoming of sorts. You're here at a UFC event as a UFC fighter. Man, what controversy. UFC 125 happens. You fight Thiago Silva. Before we get into what happened after the fight, in that fight, how strong did he feel and how convinced are you that there was some extracurricular activities going on?
I remember the first thing I said to one of my coaches, Master Lloyd Irvin, while I was in the hospital getting my nose fixed, was
which, by the way, looks great.
Thank you. Yeah. Great doctors, Dana White's doctor. I remember saying to my coach, I was in and out, I was still woozy. I said, man, that guy was strong. He was really strong. And Master Lloyd looked at me and was like, what do you mean? And I said, I've never felt anybody that strong before. And I never mentioned that again to anybody else until I heard that something might be positive.
And there's nothing confirmed yet from what I understand.
Nothing confirmed yet.
Air, right?
And for me too, I want to see what's going on. Like, I want to know, is it true, is it not? I know I'm back in the UFC. I want to know what happened. Like, what's going on with his test? Why did one come back dirty, and what was it? That's the biggest thing for me. Like, I want to know, because for me, during that fight, I remember doubting myself. I broke mentally in that fight, man. I remember thinking while I was in half guard, I can't roll this guy. What's going on? Why? What's wrong with me? What's wrong with me?
Right.
So for me, I need that answer. So I know that it wasn't me. It was something else.
But regardless of that answer, you're back in the UFC.
I've been blessed, man. I've been blessed. I am back in the UFC. I guess this is official now. Dana White told the press, but out of my mouth, I am back in the UFC. It's like I got the second shot at life, man, and I'm going to run with it.
Now, you're back in the UFC, and that is going to present all kinds of interesting opportunities when it comes to fights, but to actually get that news, to find out that, you know, things were gone, you'd been cut from the UFC, and then all of a sudden you're back in, what was the moment like, other than a little bit of frustration because you couldn't tell the family and friends?
You know, my wife was sitting right beside me when my manager called. I've been sitting on the couch trying to figure out what I was doing with myself. I was stuck in an unemployment line now, you know?
Right.
I wasn't employed by the UFC anymore. I didn't want to fight for any other organization. When I got that call, man, this is the first time saying this on public, I cried, man.
You cried?
Bro, think about it. Like, for me, and I don't want to downplay anybody else's hardships, or I feel bad for everybody that's gone through some kind of sickness, but it really is, to me, it feels like a new lease on life. Like, I have a new shot. It's rejuvenated me, and I feel refreshed. I'm doing things now that I used to do before I got in the UFC. I'm talking about training-wise and just my attitude. So I think it's what I needed, man. I needed to be smacked in the face really hard. Being fired was part of it. And then when they called me back and told me I was rehired, I was being put back on the roster, the feeling was overwhelming almost. It was almost overwhelming. But now I understand this is my life. I've been lying to myself, telling myself that I've been doing everything I could to become a champion. I wasn't. Now I look back retrospect, I wasn't doing everything I was supposed to be doing. They gave me the second chance, I'm going to run with it, man. And the only thing I can compare it to is if you talk to a friend or talk to somebody in the hospital that has been given a second lease on life, that's the feeling, man. Like, when you find out, guess what? You're not going to die tomorrow. You're not going to die next week. We've cured you. That's what it feels like. That's what it feels like to me. And I'm stoked. I'm not crying on TV right now.
Come on, man.
I won't do it. I won't do it.
Can't wait to see you back in the cage, man.
Thank you very
Brandon
much.
The Truth, Vera. Coming up in just a moment, we're going to take some comments from you viewers of Fight Day. Plus, we're going to talk to our panel about one of the biggest moments in MMA history, the UFC purchase of Strikeforce. Stay tuned. We're coming right back for more Fight Day. Welcome back to Fight Day, coming to you live from the Prudential Center for UFC 128. The undercard has just gotten underway, and the energy here is unreal, is it not?
It is crazy. Everyone is so excited to be here. Don't forget, you can interact with us live at home by tweeting us or posting on our Facebook page. Let's actually take a look at some comments you guys sent in.
Comment number one, and tell me what you think about this, Megan.
All right.
Even though Dana won't commit to it yet, do you expect that we're going to see UFC versus Strikeforce fights?
I have to say, I do. Dana listens to the fans, and I think the fans already have an outcry to see, especially heavyweight matchups with Strikeforce guys and UFC guys, but also they want to see fights like Frankie Edgar versus Gilbert Melendez. I mean, they really want to see these fights. I think right now he's saying, no, we can't do it, but I think there will be special circumstances where they'll make these so-called super fights, and they're going to merge these two organizations. Dana loves listening to the fans, and I really think he's going to listen to them this time.
Yeah, see, I disagree that we're going to see the UFC versus Strikeforce guys. I think that eventually all of the Strikeforce guys will become UFC fighters. And much like we saw with the WEC and the UFC, they're going to remain separate until the contracts are worked out. Strikeforce and Showtime have a deal that's going to stay in place. That is going to be worked out, and then eventually those guys will cross over to the UFC. But I think it's going to be a minute until we see those fights. Next comment from Mr. Taco Muncher. John Jones wins tonight. His reach, weird style, and Shogun's long layoff will all play a factor. What's your take?
You know, I can see where the long layoff thing comes into play. Let's take Rampage, for instance. He had a long layoff and did not perform up to, you know, his ability when he fought Rashad. So that could be a factor, but Shogun has looked so good lately. And I have to say, I was at media workouts. I saw him work out for about half an hour, and he looked great. I mean, he looked in shape, and I think he's really fired up for this fight as well.
Now, an interesting thing is that John Jones is only 23 years old.
Yeah.
Is all of this happening so quickly in only 6 weeks' time going to be overwhelming for John Jones? He's now fighting for a title all of a sudden. This is something that he hadn't even considered 2 months ago. This may be a lot for John Jones to handle.
Right. You know, I actually talked to John Jones a few days ago before the press conference, and he seemed to be thriving off the situation. He's excited. Yes, he's 23, but it's almost like he's been preparing for this his whole life. You know, he said his body feels great, even though he did back-to-back training camps with the Bader fight and now this fight. He just seems ready to go.
And finally, one more from Twitter here. What do you guys think about a potential matchup of teammates, Rashad Evans and John Jones? Your take.
I have to say, I definitely think they're going to fight. I think Rashad wants this fight. Yeah. I think he's hoping for John to beat Shogun so that he can take this fight.
Now, originally, Rashad said he didn't want to take this fight.
Yep.
You think things have changed?
I do. You know, he's made some comments lately, and it seems that he is quite disappointed in John Jones. And I think now he doesn't care. They are teammates, or they were teammates, whatever the situation is now, you know, we'll see. But I don't think he cares. I think he's out there and he wants to prove he's better than Jon Jones and almost put Jon Jones in his place.
Dana White's been pretty clear about it. On ESPN's MMA Live, Dana said, quote, "We've got to see who comes out of this title fight between Jones and Hua, and as to whether or not they're unscathed. If the guys are ready to roll with no injuries, yeah, Rashad is definitely next in line. I think it would probably be foolish for Rashad to pass up what is a legitimate guaranteed title shot."
It's foolish for anyone to pass up a title shot, but definitely in this situation, it's like he has something to prove now.
But this is going to be a moot point if Jones doesn't walk away with the title tonight, and now is your opportunity to tell us if you think Jon Jones is going to be the new UFC light heavyweight champion, or if Shogun is going to remain the champ. You can vote in our Boost Mobile fan poll by texting Jones to 22333 if you think Jones is going to take the belt, or Shogun to 22333 if you think that Shogun Rua is going to remain the champion. You can also tweet your vote for John Bones. Tweet the word Jones to @poll for Shogun. Text the thing Shogun to @poll. Right now, joining us on the set of Fight Day is Heavy MMA's editor-in-chief, Mr. Matt Brown, MMA Fighting and Sports Illustrated writer Ben Folks, and Fight Day alum, UFC Magazine editor-in-chief, Mr. Seth Keller. Gentlemen, welcome back to Fight Day. It's nice to have you here.
What's happening?
And Ben, welcome for the first time.
Dave, you are my favorite would-be game show host.
You know what?
I'd be happy to be here.
I didn't think that you were going to bring it up when we were on the air. Ben and I have had a feud for years now. We had a very famous grappling match, which I dominated, and he's a little bit bitter about it.
Look it up. Google it, people.
Actually, don't.
Google it.
Do not do that.
You got tapped about 10 times, right?
Yeah,
about 10 times. 12 times?
Yeah.
Google.
All right, guys, thank you for being here today on the set of Fight Day. First off, your take being here in Newark, New Jersey. You guys like the energy?
It's been great. I mean, the crowd arrives early. It's not like a Vegas crowd, is it?
No, it's definitely not like a Vegas crowd. They arrive early and they let you know exactly what they think about everything that's going on.
Now,
I appreciate that.
Seth, I'm going to start with you on this question because we got this one from Twitter. If Brendan Schaub wins decisively tonight here at UFC 128, where do you think that puts him in the heavyweight division?
I think he's going to look. I think he's going to need about one more fight afterwards. I don't think he's going to be instant contender status from there. I'd like to see him fight another guy, maybe the winner of Mir Nelson, maybe like Stefan Struve somewhere down the line. But I think if he wins decisively, comes out and finishes him, I mean, it's definitely a step up, obviously.
Ben spent some time with him. You've been spending some time with him, right?
I spent some time with him in the last couple of days, and I mean, one thing I'm amazed at is how calm he is. I mean, here he is, he's fighting Crow Cop. You know, Crow Cop is, you know, a little bit older, but he still can hurt you. I mean, he's still a legend of the sport. And we were going out to dinner the other night, and he's sitting there eating chicken wings. You know, chicken wings.
It's a heavyweight, man.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's something you can do when you're, you know, 250-pound heavyweight, is you can enjoy some chicken wings on fight week. But at the same time, I mean, if I was going to fight Crow Cop in 2 days, I'd be too nervous to hold down any spicy barbecue sauce. But that's me.
He probably got him mild, so it's fine.
Matt, what's your take? Do you think that Brendan Schaub comes out tonight, immediately presses the action, and wins decisively, or do you think he's going to fight a more slow, cautious fight?
I mean, I think it's past Crow Cop's days. I mean, when you really think about it, I mean, when was his last? What would you consider his last significant win? Like
Josh Barnett.
Czech Congo? I mean, is that? Would you even count that?
Josh Barnett, when he beat Josh Barnett in the
yeah.
fight.
I mean, I don't even count the Pat Barry win because Pat Barry should have won the fight. I mean, Pat Barry should have won the fight.
Pat Barry had not broken his hand and his foot. It seemed like it was going to be a different. I mean, you hate to go back and you don't want to take something away from a guy's win like that.
What I really like about what I do like about Brendan Schaub is he is that new breed, you know, that new breed of athlete. The guy that came over from another sport is really, really athletic.
A hybrid?
A hybrid, if you will. A hybrid, if you will. Yeah. So. I think he comes out and makes short order.
Well, a guy that size who can move like he can move, and you know, with good striking and good wrestling. I mean, there's just so many ways he can threaten you, and it's difficult to see. I mean, Crow Cop can always throw that kick upside your head and change your night, but you know, if Schaub gets in his face and crowds him and kind of takes that weapon away from him, I don't see what else he has.
Brendan Schaub versus Mirko Crow Cop is, of course, on the pay-per-view card tonight for UFC 128. And guys, one of the biggest stories ever in mixed martial arts broke just 1 week ago today. The UFC has purchased Strikeforce. Can anyone say that they thought that this was going to happen even a little bit?
First of all,
I called it.
We called it, thanks.
When you say broke, I believe you mean MMAfighting.com.
That's right. As a matter of fact, yeah. Nice plug.
Yeah, but yeah, definitely an earth mover in the world of MMA.
Yeah, this is a massive moment because it means that all of the fighters, potentially a lot of the top name fighters, are going to be under the same umbrella. Fedor Emelianenko, Matt, your prediction, is he ever going to fight under the UFC banner now?
I can't see how you cannot make it happen, but I mean, you know, they keep saying it's going to operate as two separate entities. We all know probably not. I mean, maybe until the the Showtime contract runs out or something like that. Fedor's really expensive. So maybe they don't want anything to do with that.
And does M1 Global stand in the way too? Because Strikeforce had been willing in the past to partner with M1 Global and co-promote shows. The UFC has been implicitly clear they don't co-promote. So is M1 still going to stand in the way of Fedor fighting in the UFC?
I think so, and M1 Global has an arrangement with Showtime that they can work. And plus, when you have Fedor kind of eyeing the door as a fighter, and obviously he gets bummed out when he loses and then says I might retire and then backs off a few days later. But at the same time, it looks like he's not looking to be in this sport for too many more years, and with the slow transition that this is going to take to get some of those Strikeforce heavyweights over to the UFC, it's highly possible that he'll just retire before that happens.
I mean, was there a better kept secret though? I mean, normally you hear some sort of rumbling, some sort of rumbling, some sort of whatever.
What was a better kept secret? That Brock Lesnar was going to be the coach of this next season of The Ultimate Fighter?
No,
or that
I heard rumblings of that.
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
But
there was
this
rumors
was just,
of it, but this blew everyone's mind.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, Seth, do you think that women fighting in mixed martial arts on a high level like they are in Strikeforce right now is going to continue once the UFC really fully takes over, or do you think that women's MMA is, for all intents and purposes, going to go away in the Strikeforce organization?
I have no idea. I can't even comment on that sort of thing because I have no idea what the plan is going forward. Like you said, I had no idea they were going to buy Strikeforce, so I have no clue.
It's tough to call. I mean, do you think that Dana's going to soften on his position, Ben?
If he sees that that it's viable, that you can make money that way, then
where I was going with that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I hope that he sees that. I mean, but then it is. He does bring up a good point. That is there a full division there, or are there just one or two stars? Is it Gina Carano and then everybody else, or do enough people really want to see this? I hope they do. I mean, I hope that the sale of Strikeforce doesn't signal the end of the biggest stage for women's MMA, because they deserve a big stage. So they work just as hard as the men.
Well,
do.
There's a lot of great athletes out there. They're putting it all on the line, just like.
I mean, it's kind of like my gripe with Strikeforce in general, though, is are any of the divisions deep enough? That's kind of like been my thing about them trying to force titles down your throat. And you have like Nick Diaz fighting the guy Cyborg for a title. That's not
right. That's not the fight anybody really wanted to see.
Yeah, and so I mean, are any of the divisions deep enough? Much less the women's divisions.
I think that was one of the problems that Strikeforce had all along, was their inability to think about more than one thing at once. Then when they got on the heavyweight Grand Prix, it was like, okay, now we're doing the heavyweight Grand Prix, but they're not simultaneously building momentum in other divisions and setting themselves up for the future. And the UFC has always been a lot better about long-term matchmaking that way, and thinking about how they're building it from all different angles. And instead of just creating these fights where they clearly want to see one guy win, they create what are good fights where they can live with either guy winning and go from there.
Rapid fire, who are you most excited to see on the Strikeforce roster currently over in the UFC?
I think Gilbert Melendez. I think he's a legitimate top 3. I mean, if you asked him, he thinks he's a top pound-for-pound guy. He thinks he's a top lightweight in the world. I'm interested to see how he'd hang. I mean, you look at a guy who's he has fought some serious competition throughout his career. All of his losses, he's been able to come back and avenge. So I think Gilbert Melendez would make a tough fight for just about anybody.
Ben?
I would say Nick Diaz. I mean, we know we've already seen him in the UFC, but I'm also interested to see how that relationship is going to go. I mean, Nick Diaz can be kind of a tough guy to work with from a promotional standpoint at times, and the UFC knows that. And but we know Dana White likes him as a fighter. How do you not like him as a fighter? He's a tough fighter. He always brings it. He never backs down from anything, and he's a guy who's living his ideology from one moment to the next. 209 all the way.
Yeah. And whatever that Chevy dealership is.
I'm going to say Tim Kennedy. I know he lost his last fight, but I love the idea of him fighting in the 185 division in the UFC. It's just a great story, and I'm just a Tim Kennedy fan more than anything else. Aside from that, I have to say Alistair Overeem, just because see the Demolition Man in the heavyweight division in the UFC is going to be...
Do you think he's going to be as dominant when he comes over to the UFC as he has been over in Strikeforce? And maybe even calling him dominant in Strikeforce.
At the same time, Alistair hasn't fought a whole lot in Strikeforce. Yeah. I think there was about a year and a half where he didn't fight. I can't recall the exact amount of time, but he didn't defend his belt for a long time. He was fighting overseas. So now you're going to see at least some consistent work, I hope. But
we all hope.
Yeah, I mean, because
he said it's going to be priority now. Right. That he won the K1 title, so that's done. Now he can get back to putting on small gloves and beating people.
Right.
Up.
But this is all kind of conjecture as far as when they're actually going to come into the UFC versus how long they're going to fight under the Strikeforce banner. And I'm interested to see how it all plays out.
Overall, good thing or bad thing for the fans?
Oh, it's a great thing for the fans. This brings MMA closer to the NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball. You know where to get the best athletes, the best the best event every single time out. I mean, you know to go to the NFL if you want to see the highest quality football. You're going to know to go to the UFC to see the highest quality MMA.
I mean, one difference that you could point out is that for the fans, you do get to see a lot more of these fights. We get to see all these different fighters. The question of who you're excited about seeing, it's just among choosing of several different guys who we're all excited to see. But for the fighters, it creates a kind of a negotiating problem. There's one place to go.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. It's time for us right now to take a look at the mixedmartialarts.com epic thread. Michael Bisping says he quote-unquote fancies a fight with Chael Sonnen. The undergrad, of course, had a ton of responses. Let's take a look at a few right now. Nogi Bear said he only lost to 3 future Hall of Famers, and all of them were ex-champs. Sonnen loses in a close fight. Super Callow made a comment saying that Chael, nobody really takes him seriously. His quips are a joke, and that's why people find them funny. The only people that take them seriously, well, they have issues. But our favorite comment came from mixedmartialarts.com reader Humphrey, who said this about Bisping, quote, he loses anytime he fights a top-tier opponent. As easily as Rivera got into his head, Chael, with his $2 stupidity, is going to make Bisping's head explode. The only thing I see coming out of this is another highlight reel loss for Bisping. What do you think? Let us know on Twitter or Facebook at Heavy MMA. Stay right there. Fight Day is coming back with UFC bantamweight champion Dominick Cruz in just a moment. And welcome back to Fight Day. We are live in Newark, New Jersey for UFC 128. We've got an amazing crowd with us right now here at the Prudential Center. And of course, we are joined by our good buddy, Dominick Cruz. Before we get to Dominick, don't forget you can participate in our show by tweeting us at Heavy MMA or commenting on our Facebook page at facebook.com/HeavyMMA. If we choose to read your comment or question on the air, you're going to win an awesome prize, including signed gear from Joseph Benavidez, Uriah Faber, or Rich Franklin. Right now, my pleasure to introduce the UFC bantamweight champion, Dominick Cruz. I'm sure that you have a lot to say about tonight's fight card. Pleasure to have you on the set of Fight Day, my friend.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm pretty excited about it for sure.
Yeah, we're looking at a fight card tonight, which is really the coming out party for UFC bantamweights. There's a lot of bantamweights that are on this card. Who are you most watching intensely tonight on the UFC 128?
I mean, it's no secret, I think, that I'm definitely watching the 135-pound co-main event matchup tonight with Uriah Faber and Eddie Wineland. Both those guys are very explosive athletes. Wineland's got a lot more power in his hands than I think people give him credit for. His footwork's very good. He's very hard to catch, great head movement, and that cage is big. So I'm excited just to see how that fight turns out, without a doubt.
How real is it, the bad blood between you and Uriah Faber?
Me and Uriah don't really get along very much.
Why is that?
That's needless to say. It goes all the way back to the day that, the first time that we fought was about 4 years ago, I'd say, to this date. I fought him at 145 pounds for the world title. And, I did some stuff that made him angry. He did some stuff after the fight that made me angry. And it just stuck in my head, and it just gave me a bad taste in my mouth. And I never really just had a very good feeling towards him since then. And, it just makes it that much easier to get in there and punch him in the face.
So are you hoping he wins tonight so you get the opportunity to do that?
I mean, definitely. I hope that he gets this win tonight. I think it'd be huge for the division to get a fight like that, But to be honest, I want to fight the best guys in the world. Eddie Wineland is no slouch. It's not going to be an easy fight for Faber. And I'll take the guy who wins tonight because that's the #1 contender. Definitely, I would like a shot to get my loss back from Faber and put a beat down on him without a doubt.
Okay, right now, Megan Olivi is out in the crowd with an audience member who has a question for Dominick Cruz. Megan, what's going on out there?
Hey guys, I'm here with John, who is a big Dominick Cruz fan, and he's got a question for him about his wrestling background. John?
Yeah, I just wanted to know what his credentials were, because in the Dominick Cruz fight, I mean, he pretty much made him look like about as effective as I would. And I'm just curious, what his credentials were, high school, college, anything like that, who you trained with.
Do you mean in the Scott Jorgensen fight?
Yeah, sorry, Scott Jorgensen.
All right, let's see what Dominick has to say about that.
I view the Scott Jorgensen fight as a win, a good win on my record. Scott Jorgensen was looking like a monster before that fight. He was going in there and smashing people, guillotining them in the first round, knocking people out. He just looked vicious, and I went in there and I was able to, pick him apart step by step, round by round, and just put him anywhere I wanted on his back. I was able to take him down when I wanted. I was able to punch him when I wanted, kick him when I wanted, knee him when I wanted. So that was a good fight for me. It was a learning experience. It was a lot of ring time, and I feel like I grew from that fight, and it's just another step towards getting ready for the next contender.
We have an interesting question from Tony Zimzi on Facebook. He said, have you ever thought about a super fight between you and Jose Aldo? Would you ever move up to 145 to make it happen in the vein of fighting the best guys in the world?
You know, exactly. In vein of fighting the best guys in the world, I mean, that makes sense. That would be an awesome fight for the fans. It'd be an awesome fight for me. You know, Jose Aldo is bar none one of the best in the world for sure. And you know, I would definitely welcome a fight like that in the future. You know, I think that right now the division is so deep and so stacked at 135 pounds. There's no reason for me to hop around yet. Right. I got Faber coming up. You know, Wineland's looking good. There's guys that have been on big win streaks. You can't count Miguel Torres out. He's always somebody to deal with and think about. You know, you got all these guys in the division. Really, I think I need to get a few more wins in my division, secure my title, and you know, I'm very focused on where I'm at right now and staying on top at 135 pounds. In the future, if those opportunities come, I'm more than willing to take them and happy to take them. Fight the best guys in the world.
The Ultimate Fighter tryouts are here in New York and New Jersey on Monday, and there's been a lot of talk about you being one of the coaches of the Ultimate Fighter 14. How real are those talks?
You know, I think those talks are pretty real. I think it's a real possibility, and I welcome it. I'm pumped. I can't wait. I would love for an opportunity like that to represent the weight class, 135 pounds, and just let the fans know, you know, that I'm here and I'm going to be here for a while, and I would love to be able to help these guys coming up in the division and just be able to coach and just play a part in the upcoming of this division and the guys coming up in it. I think there's things that I can learn from them. I think there's things that they can learn from me, and we can just all help each other in building the division and showing everybody in the world that us quick little guys got something to prove and go out there and smash people too.
And perfect world, it's you versus Uriah Faber, so that grudge match gets to live out on Spike TV, right?
Yeah, I think it'll be good on Spike TV just because, you know, there is a grudge between me and Uriah for sure, and you know, I'm sure that who knows how heated it could get on a show on the set, having to be in there all the time, having to see him all the time with his long frizzy hair and stuff. I mean, I don't know. Well, who knows how it could happen, but I know that it could bring some heat, and I'm sure it would be fun for fans to watch.
All right, coming up, we've got Clay Guida, who's going to be joining us on the set. Stay tuned right there for more Fight Day. And welcome back to Fight Day. Megan Olivi alongside Dave Farra. We are here at the Prudential Center for UFC 128, which is about to get underway. Some more comments coming to us from our friends on Twitter. This one's from Ryan32593. He said Shogun is going to leg kick John Jones to death. He is going to then tap him out. How shocked would you be if Shogun tapped out John Jones tonight?
I mean, anything can happen in these fights. We've seen some incredible endings, so I will never count it out, but wow, that would be quite an amazing finish.
Yeah, this is such a closely matched main event. I love this. I mean, you've got two guys on the card that no one really knows how to predict. Both of them have lots of ways they can win, but no one can really say, you know what, John Jones is definitely going to win because of this.
Right, and you know, I think John Jones realizes that too. I spoke to him a little bit earlier, and he said, you know, the problem with Shogun is he's so well-rounded. John's kind of faced specialists in the past.
Right.
And now Shogun is coming in here, and he is good at everything. And he could really win in knockout, submission, any particular form.
And we haven't really seen John Jones truly get punched in the face yet.
That's true.
And Shogun, I imagine, is going to be aiming to do just that.
Oh, yeah, I think so.
One more comment. Shogun wins tonight. Too much experience. Now, people think of Shogun as a seasoned veteran who's been around for many years. He's got a tremendous amount of experience. Shogun is only 29 years old, so he's not that much older, but he has been around the game for a long time. Do you think experience plays a factor?
Well, yes, obviously it plays a factor, but I think people also forget Shogun was champion at 23. He was a Pride champion that young. So it's not impossible, and John Jones knows that. I think what John Jones has going for him, you know, that will kind of outweigh the experiences. He has so much hype behind him, and it seems like that boosts his confidence. It doesn't seem to add that pressure like it does to other fighters. It seems like John thrives off of it, and he almost needs it to put on a performance when he walks in that octagon.
Now, the arena here is absolutely packed. Really excited about UFC 128, which is about to get underway.
Don't forget to vote in our Boost Mobile fan poll for tonight's co-main and main events. Eddie Wineland versus the California Kid, Uriah Faber in a battle of the bantamweights. And of course, tonight's main event, John Jones versus the champion, Shogun Rua. Who do you think will take home the belt?
You can text, tweet, or Facebook your vote now. We'll read your results in just a few minutes. All right, guys, I'm now joined by one of the most exciting fighters in the UFC. Is he around here? Clay Guida, how are you?
I'm fantastic. Just got off a plane, and we're here in Newark at UFC 128. I'm excited to be here. We got a great crowd, and an even more exciting main card and undercard. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, main event tonight is for the UFC Light Heavyweight Championship of the world. Before we get into all the predictions and what you think about the main card, let's talk about your fighting career, because there's a lot of question marks going on with you right now. You're facing Anthony Pettis, we know that for a fact, but does that mean that you get that #1 contender spot if you beat Anthony Pettis? What's your take?
I'm not sure about the question marks. I consider more exclamation points, because I know I'm going to go out there and be in fine form. I've been training since the Gomi fight on New Year's, and I'm super excited about this. I'm very excited that Anthony Pettis took the fight, even though he was offered, you know, if he would have waited, he could have probably fought the winner of Gray Maynard and Frankie Edgar and been the guaranteed #1 contender. So I'm going to make him regret his decision, but he's a very, very tough opponent. He's got a lot of momentum behind him right now. He's got the kick heard around the world, but he's got even more than that behind him. He's beaten several, you know, top contenders, you know, submitting Shane Roller, beating Ben Henderson. He's beat, 4 or 5 fighters, you know, fights in a row. So he's on a high. He's going to ride that wave, but he's going to run into a brick wall June 4th.
So what is your key to victory over Anthony Pettis, who is a very well-rounded, exciting guy?
Beat Clay Guida, go out there and be the dude, fight my fight, put him on his back and finish the fight. Nothing to it. I mean,
wrestling is the key to victory for you?
Wrestling wins championships.
Anthony Pettis is most dangerous to you where?
If I let him implement his game plan, which isn't going to happen, just kind of let him get in a groove. That's where that's where he gets more comfortable with. Obviously, you know, it sounds cliche, but I'm going to go out there and I'm just going to, you know, come after him from bell to bell like I do with my opponents, and most of the time we're victorious.
One thing that I love about Anthony Pettis is that he is a really exciting, flashy guy. The Showtime kick, as you mentioned, the kick heard around the world, off the cage like that with Ben Henderson. Do you think that you have to worry about moments like that in the fight where he's going to throw something completely unexpected?
It's always got to be something that's in the back of our mind. You know, I can't sit there and dwell on the fact that he's going to try to do, you know, his flashy, you know, exciting, crazy kicks and things like that. But it's always something to be expected. But like I said, when I move forward and I use my wrestling, which has got me this far in my career, that's what's going to be his biggest threat.
Now, you already talked about this a little bit, but from the Facebook page, Joey Santos says, Anthony Pettis was promised a shot at the winner of Edgar Maynard. Now that you're fighting Showtime, do you feel a win should give you a title shot? Absolutely?
Not necessarily. I'm one of those guys, I'm very patient. I've been in the game a little while. This is my 4th year in the UFC now. So obviously we haven't been in a rush. We've made a couple of pushes at the title, you know what I mean? But I think 2011 is our year. Let me rephrase that. I know 2011 is my year. There's no question marks in my mind. Like I said, it's all exclamation points from here on out. And we're taking it one punch at a time. There's a big fight tonight, Jim Miller and Kamal Shalarus. I think Jim Miller right now, 8-1 in the UFC is impeccable. You know, George Soteropoulos just lost a couple weeks ago, who I thought was the #1 contender. So there's a short list now, an even shorter list as of a couple weeks ago. So we'll see what happens tonight with Kamal Shalarus and Jim Miller. And like I said, I'm taking training one day at a time, and the fight's got to go down June 4th first.
Now, the year started off, 2011 started off at UFC 125 with Frankie Edgar and Gray Maynard fighting to a draw. Did that draw surprise you in that moment?
I didn't think it was going to be like, I thought it was going to go to a decision, just because those guys are very exciting fighters. They're just not known really for finishing, you know, because they're fighting, you know, the top echelon of fighters in the world in the UFC. So I expected a decision. I didn't expect a draw. I thought it was actually a very good call by the judges. I think Frankie took over the momentum 3rd, 4th, and 5th round, and I thought maybe he should have gotten the nod, if anything. But Gray Maynard landed so many punches. It was just, I mean, I've never seen a fight like that. That was a fight for the ages, and it just so happens it could be fight of the year, and it happened the first day of the year.
I know that you would hate to predict something like this, but who do you think you match up against better, Frankie Edgar or Gray Maynard?
I think I'm a worse matchup for anyone than if that makes sense. I think I'm a worse matchup for any of my opponents than they are a bad matchup for me. You know what I mean? You're going to have to be in shape. You're going to have to learn to wrestle. You're going to have to stop takedowns. You're going to have to strike. So it's one of those things. I'm going to be better than, you know, with whatever.
I know what you mean. Last question for you. You're not a huge lightweight. Now that 145 and 135 are over here in the UFC, have you ever considered dropping down a weight class, even though right now you're having all the success in the world at 155?
You know, we can always have more success. I think I'm like 7 or 8-5 in the UFC, which to me is just, it's awful. It doesn't sit well with me. It motivates me every morning. It motivates me in training every day. I'm here. I haven't felt pushed around. I haven't felt like any of my opponents have been stronger than me. So until that day happens, I've been here for almost 5 years in October. I want that belt, guys. Look out, I'm coming for it. The Carpenter's angry and he's hungry.
And how's the Winnebago?
The RV's great. The Winnebago's it's in California somewhere, I hope.
You hope. You don't even know where it is at your house.
It was there a couple days ago, so it's been a long flight.
All right, coming up next, we're going to talk to our panel about tonight's pay-per-view fights. Plus, we're going to see what you guys had to say about the Boost Mobile fan poll in tonight's co-main and main events. Stay tuned. We're going to be right back for more Fight Day. It's time to bring back our panel to talk about tonight's card, UFC 128. Clay Guida is about to jump out of his seat. He's so excited about what's going on right now. The fights they have begun, and we're going to be talking about the main card in just a moment. But right now, joining us here on the set is Matt Brown, the editor-in-chief of Heavy MMA, Ben Folks from Sports Illustrated and MMA Fighting, and UFC Magazine editor-in-chief, Mr. Seth Kelly, and of course, Clay Guida is still here to give us his opinion as well. Let's start by talking about Jim Miller versus Kamal Shalorus. Clay, you touched on it just a moment ago. Do you think that Jim Miller is going to come out and be the more technical fighter tonight and win as a result?
I think that's a very good description. Jim is he's been submitting black belts. His hands are getting better, and he's one of those guys, he's just a scrappy wrestler, and he's got great jiu-jitsu. He's beaten tough black belts, and he's out striking some guys, and his wrestling kind of takes him, past the tougher fighters. Kamal Shalorus was either an Olympic alternate or, an Olympic level wrestler. So I think that's going to be the key. Is Kamal going to come out and throw looping punches like we've seen him in the past, or is he going to be smarter in the fight and work to get it to the ground and maybe kind of sit in Jim's guard? Because if you look at wrestling, I think that's going to be the key to victory here on both ends of the spectrum.
Kamal Shalorus, his key to victory is what?
Oh, you make me follow this guy.
Yeah,
that's good. It's easy act to follow.
Just expert insight.
Yeah, I was on the bandwagon of get Jim Miller a big name opponent. I was kind of like, get him a name opponent. This guy's 19-2. We need to get him someone in there to like really make a name for himself. I don't think Kamal Shalorus is really that guy. And it's kind of a would you go no-win situation? Because he's a really tough guy, but if he wins, people are going to be like, who did he beat?
That is one of the tough parts, especially about with Shalorus. I mean, the last fight he had with Palashevsky, he started like a hurricane, and then just kind of wore himself out early on and didn't have much down the stretch. And I mean, that's the kind of performance he absolutely can't have here. And the thing is, I think the difference is Jim Miller has fought at this level of competition for a while, and for Kamal Shalorus, it's still kind of new. He's still just getting used to being in this sort of situation.
Is this a coming out party for Kamal Shalorus tonight? I mean, is there a possibility
if
of that?
If he wins, it is.
Yeah. But is there a real possibility that he'll win this fight, or do you think that Jim Miller's got it in the bag?
I'm not going to say anyone's got it in the bag, but I would definitely lean towards Jim Miller heavily on this fight. He's 9-1 in the UFC. He's fought a lot of top guys. He's lost twice, and those guys are Frankie Edgar and Gray Maynard. And like Clay was saying, he's a sick wrestler. He's got great jiu-jitsu. He just submitted Charles Oliveira with a knee bar. That's a really rare submission to pull off in the UFC. Right. I think there's probably 4 or 5 knee bar submission wins, really. I don't see this as the coming out party.
Palhares has 12 of them.
Yeah, right.
Whatever it is, But I think this is Jim Miller's fight to lose. But I hope after this, if he is able to get the victory, they give him like that marquee opponent.
This is just kind of a backlog of fighters in that division, all kind of sitting around waiting.
Maybe the loser of Clay Guida and Anthony Pettis. Maybe.
We don't need to tell Clay about it. There's a lot of really good fighters in that division, and it seems like Jim Miller is one of those guys that they might be trying to keep just kind of in a holding pattern.
Does this fight, if Jim Miller wins it, really help his bid to be one of those elite contenders in the lightweight division? What's your take?
Without a doubt. Like Seth was saying, his record speaks for itself. He's 8 or 9-1 in the UFC. And his only losses, are to the 2 top guys in the world right now, arguably in the UFC, Frankie Edgar and Gray Maynard. So, and they were good fights. No one pushes this guy around in there. He's a very, just hands-on opponent, and he goes out there and he pushes his pace. So, I think Jim Miller wins this. I think he should be next in line, for a title shot.
Wait, you're saying that he should leapfrog you?
I got 5 losses. I don't know. I'm all about. I'm kind of about to
answer in the history of all interviews.
His manager's about to run in and tackle him off the set.
It's man in all of MMA right here.
I'm about the pecking order. If you look at toughness, like in the NFL, they talk about toughness of schedule stuff. Like if you look at competition, I think I've fought guys with better records or guys they're tougher fighters all around, but he's finishing people. He's going out there. His record it's unbelievable. So maybe when I go out there and put on a greater performance against Anthony Pettis, we'll sway the the judges and the UFC's decision.
let's talk about the heavyweight division. You got Crow Cop, who is a legend in the sport, Brendan Schaub, who's an up-and-coming guy. A lot of people are excited to see about where Brendan Schaub is going to stack up when he comes to fighting the best guys in the UFC's heavyweight division. I'm not so sure that this test tonight is that test as to where he's going to really stack up with the best of the best, because there is some question marks when you talk about Mirko Crow Cop and where he is. Does he still have the heart to fight at that elite level? But Brendan Schaub can make a statement tonight. How does he do that?
Well, I mean, is Crow Cop even a heavyweight? Is a real question. What do you like? 228, 29, 229 or something like that? I mean, he's a big guy. There's no doubt about it. But I mean, we kind of touched on it a little bit earlier. I don't think Crow Cop has had a win that anyone can really, put a mark on since 2006, 2005, something like that.
He's definitely not at that elite level anymore, but it's not like he's got nothing for anybody. I mean, Crow Cop can still hurt you.
Well, I mean, anyone that's 230 pounds should be able to hurt you. I mean, anyone that, especially someone that fights for a living.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I think, I've heard some other fighters refer to this as, well, this is Schaub's showcase fight. This is his chance to go out there and beat a guy with a name who's kind of on the tail end. I mean, I think Schaub's still a young guy. He's still developing, still ways to go. And I think Trevor Whitman was talking about it the other night, and he said, I see him as a bud right now. Just kind of peeking out of the soil and hasn't really started to blossom yet. He has a lot of improvements that he can still make, but I don't think he is going to go right from this to fighting the Lesners or Dos Santoses of the world. But if he wins this fight and wins it impressively, I mean, the people who wrote him off as a Ultimate Fighter character are going to have to start taking him seriously.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's look at the middleweight division. You got Nate Marquardt taking on Dan Miller tonight. This is a really important fight for both of these fighters, albeit one that was taken on short notice by Dan Miller because of what happened over in Japan at Akiyama, wasn't able to make it over. Tonight is probably the most important out of anyone on this fight card for Nate Marquardt. If he loses tonight, it sets him back, 3 or 4, maybe even 5 fights to get back into that contender range. But does a win tonight, Seth, in your opinion, bump Nate Marquardt back up into that, sniffing around, possibly as a contender at middleweight?
I don't know. I hate even positing that sort of question, or like even theorizing on where it puts where a win would put him. I think he needs the win. I think he's coming off of he hasn't had the best luck lately, and neither is Dan Miller. So the two of them, it's definitely not do or die territory. I don't see that happening. But I think win is just going to kind of push him forward. I don't think it's going to be a real title shot. I guess I don't know.
Clay can talk a little bit about this. You know what it's like to have a loss, and people say this is like a do or die type fight. But I mean, the roles have kind of been reversed because it was Dan Miller who had to have the win.
Right. Yeah.
Now he got 2 in a row, and now it's Nate Marquardt, the perennial top 5 guy, that now is like, all right, he needs a win. I mean, is that added pressure when people are like, you need the win?
Both of those guys always come out to fight, though. I mean, it's like they put on a show every time they're in there. So
I agree with everyone here. I've been in that situation where my back was up against the wall. I lost 2 in a row, and they say, is the pressure on you to be dropped from the UFC, or is it more pressure to win the fight, or is it more pressure just to go out there and perform? It's a combination of the 3. I think it's just you got to put it out there. You know what I mean? You just got to go out there and fight your fight, and put everything aside. Don't think about the critics. Don't think about the cameras, all that stuff. You just got to go out there and do what got you to the big show, and that's just go out and win and perform. So I think some people, the mental aspect, it gets the better part of them. We've seen Nate Marquardt be in the big fight, be in the number 1 contender fight, be in the title fights, and sometimes it looks like he's on autopilot. Maybe it's just me. Dan Miller, we've seen all over the place too. That guy he'll go out there and look like a monster, in one performance, and be submitting some, really tough guys who I didn't even think he should be in there with. And then you see, I thought he should have beat Michael Bisping, and he kind of went out there and he didn't wrestle at all. His wrestling's way better than Bisping, and he stood there and struck with him the whole time. So it depends on which fighter you're going to see. I don't think a victory by either of these guys really gets him back into the title shot right away. Middleweight's starting to be a lot more competitive than it has been in the past. So.
Do you think that a win tonight for Nate Marquardt would maybe set him up for a match with Michael Bisping? Because he kind of called out Michael Bisping with the whole spitting thing, saying that he didn't like it, and all of a sudden that's a really high-profile fight.
Exactly. I think that, there's more to it as far as that goes. 2 of the most popular middleweights in the world, and obviously with the controversy with Michael Bisping and the fact that Marquardt wants to set himself apart from the pack, and Bisping saying he thinks he's 1 fight away from a title shot. So we'll see how this fight goes, and I don't know. I wouldn't overlook Dan Miller, though, especially not when he's from around here. He's got his home crowd behind him, too.
Okay, tonight in the co-main event, you got Uriah Faber versus Eddie Wineland, and Dominick Cruz, who was just on set with us, said that he is watching this one with bated breath because it means a tremendous amount for that bantamweight division. What is Uriah Faber's key to victory tonight? And we'll start with you on this one, Ben.
I think his key to victory is putting Wineland on the defensive right away and keeping him there. I mean, a lot of people, obviously Wineland knows that people aren't really giving him much of a shot. I mean, I think Faber was like a 5-1 favorite at some places, and so there's got to be some part of him that probably does wonder if he can compete with the Uriah Fabers of the world. If Uriah Faber goes out there, gets right in his face right away, and I think Faber's the more well-rounded fighter here, and that's what he has to exploit, is that he can fight anywhere. He can do this, no matter what kind of fight it turns into. Wineland has a little bit more specific path to victory.
Okay, we're kind of short on time here, so I want to jump right to the main event here. You got Jon Jones versus Shogun, who this is an incredibly interesting matchup. No one really knows how to call this one. Clay, give me your take. You start.
Johnny Bones Jones, I know he's a friend of mine. We're teammates and things like that, but instinct's going to set in. Wrestling wins championships. He's going to put him on his back, and I think he's going to just unleash those wicked arms and limbs and elbows that he has. And I'm not much for predictions, but TKO second round, finish him, maybe submission second round. Shogun's had a long time off. We saw what happened when he came off his last injury. So Johnny Bones, his best move was to go right back to the gym after he beat Ryan Bader, after he pretty much dominated Ryan Bader, I think it's safe to say. And he got right back in the gym, and I think we're going to see a new light heavyweight champion crowned tonight.
Okay, kind of rapid fire here because we're short on time, but Matt?
He stole it from me. Shogun, I might take Shogun if I knew I was going to get the best Shogun, the best fresh Shogun. We know Jon Jones is fresh. He's coming right back off of a fight a month ago. Jon Jones.
Even if we had the best Shogun, I think I'd still might pick Jon Jones. He's just his range, his size has too many problems, and he can just do too many things to hurt you. I'm picking Jon Jones.
So taking Shogun. Shogun solved Machida. Machida was unbeatable at that time, and you could argue that he solved him twice. The second time, he solved him definitively. So I think, I hope Shogun's recovered well from the knee surgery. I see him coming out using the leg kicks just to get inside and work him. He's going to come at him. He's going to come at him hard. It's going to be an exciting fight.
Do you think the short time frame of only 6 weeks to prepare on either side is going to play a factor?
I mean, you have to ask Clay that. I think it's kind of nuts. I mean, I feel like Jon Jones just finished off Bader like last week. I mean, but I mean, Jones is 23 years old. He's new into the sport, so he's got that.
Not like he's taking a lot of damage.
Yeah, exactly. He's not taking a lot of damage, and it's like Guzman probably gave him the most damage, and that was his first fight in.
I've got to bring this up. Did you guys, Clay? Did you hear about this with what happened with Greg Jackson and Jon Jones today? Because this is a story that just kind of broke. Apparently today here in Newark, there was some crackhead who broke some old lady's window, and
JoJo Cobb stepped in.
No, I kid you not. Jon Jones and Greg Jackson and Winkleman chased him down and armbarred this crackhead. Is that true?
I heard a little something along those lines, so good for them. Go Jackson. Go
Jon Jones is out there the day of his light heavyweight bid, and he's literally tackling crackheads in Newark.
He's out fighting crime out in the streets of Newark.
All right, you guys have been voting all night in the Boost Mobile fan poll. Here's a quick look at who everyone picked for tonight's co-main event between Eddie Wineland and Uriah Faber. There you had it. Uriah Faber across the board, and here's what everyone had to say about our main event for the UFC light heavyweight title. Everyone says Jon Jones, with the exception there of the fans who say Shogun, and then Seth Kelly also coming in at Shogun. Big thanks to Ben Folks from MMA Fighting and Sports Illustrated, our very own Matt Brown from Heavy MMA, Seth Kelly from UFC Magazine, and of course, UFC star Clay Guida. Thank you for tuning in for Fight Day. We'll see you again at UFC 129 in Toronto. Free Facebook fights starting right now. You can head over to facebook.com/UFC to see 2 live free fights. For Megan Olivi and the entire Fight Day crew, I'm Dave Farra. We'll see you next time on Fight Day.